We are honored to welcome Jolene DeHeer to the platform of speakers for this year's virtual MG Educational Conference. Mrs. DeHeer is a motivational speaker and author from Grand Rapids, Michigan. She has spoken at numerous conferences and conventions across the United States and Canada. Our founder, Esther Land, had the privilege of hearing Jolene speak at several conferences and had immediately thought of her when we were looking for an enthusiastic presenter with this talent. Mrs. DeHeer is one of the freshest motivational and inspirational speakers available today. Her dynamic life stories and practical insights will move you from side-holding laughter to heartfelt tears. Her presentation on finding hope will motivate you, inspire you, encourage you, and entertain you. She will touch your life and heart forever. Please welcome Jolene DeHeer.
I am delighted and honored to get to be a small part of the 2020 annual Patient Education Conference for Myasthenia Gravis. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And you may have noticed from the introduction that I am not a physician. I'm not a therapist. I actually do not work in the field of neuroimmunological diseases, but I am a motivational speaker with, and you need to be very important that you get this, a very well-developed sense of humor. I learned very long ago, early on in my career, that I explain this right up front because I've had people miss a whole talk because they're wondering if I'm quite right. There was a lady in the San Diego conference many years ago who, as I spoke, it looked like she's becoming more and more puzzled. And be a person with a very positive attitude, I figured that my words were so deep that that dear soul couldn't understand them. And so when she came up to me after the conference, I was so glad that I could help clear her mind and ease her mind. And I fell in love with her immediately, mostly because she was shorter than me. Most people who are shorter than me are in kindergarten. So I fell in love with this woman, and she had that beautiful silver hair, and she was so petite and put together and lovely. And she's from the South, and so she talked like this. And she walked up to me and she said, "Honey, I don't think your dipstick is a touching oil." And I just burst out laughing because, quite frankly, I don't even think I have oil in the crankcase. So consider that self-disclosure. There's going to be a sense of humor going here. I hope you don't mind. But one of the things I would like to do for us to do today is I would like to offer you the gift of finding hope. I want to begin, first off, by honoring you. Each one of you, whether you're a patient or a caregiver, is on a journey you did not plan for. A journey that was not in your 5-year long-range plan. It's a journey filled with roadblocks, detours, and a very uncertain future for many of you. And it's a journey that can lead to being overwhelmed and at times even hopeless. And so I'm hoping that today that we can find some hope along the way and maybe even a little laughter. Now, I've not walked the road you're walking, but I have walked a similar road with my husband who developed a degenerative pulmonary disease called pulmonary fibrosis. And I know all too well that feeling of adjusting to new realities, to hearing diagnoses, to hearing a doctor tell you something you really didn't want to hear. I know the struggle to give up dreams and to realize that your future is not going to be what you'd intended. I know the struggle of trying to hang on to hope during the tough times. And so what I would like to do is share with you some of the things that my husband and I learned on our journey that helped us not only find hope, but to actually celebrate it in the midst of all of the struggles that we were going through. And I also want to say that this is not going to be rocket science. This is not going to be an idea where you go, well, I never thought of that one before. These are very common foundational truths that I know I need to be constantly reminded of, and I would like to offer that reminder to you as well. Because once we get these foundations in, it's easier to find the hope that'll help us to continue to go forward and to do so victoriously. So, the question before us is, how and where can we find hope when our lives are rapidly changing? Well, I would like to suggest there's basically two ways. One is to have a spirit that is open to receive hope. And 2 is to have a spirit that is willing to give hope. So I'd like to just look at 2 areas in each one of those specific areas. The first thing I would like to mention is if you will open your heart up to receive hope by choosing to have an attitude of gratitude and contentment. You see, every morning, each one of us wakes up and we have a new day ahead of us, and we have choices to make of how we're going to handle that day and how we're going to respond to that day. And we can wake up angry and bitter at all of the injustices, of the unfairness of having to have a neurological disease, of all of the limitations now that we have to deal with and the change of plans. And in some ways, you'd be perfectly justified because those are real emotions. They do need to be faced and addressed. But if that is all you have, day after day, the hope will leak away and you will be left with the feeling of hopelessness. Or you can wake up each day and you can decide, even if it's not the best day, you will look for the blessing, you will look for the good thing, and you will celebrate that, because no matter what, there is always a good thing. And one of the things that I've come to appreciate is so often it is something that I've taken for granted. I remember with listening to my husband struggle to breathe and thinking, I'm always going to be so grateful for every breath I take. And until this moment today, and I just said that, I don't know how many breaths I've taken, thousands probably. Not once was I truly grateful for it. Small things. In fact, I remember I had this amazing friend, a woman who just really inspired me. And she was in an accident where she was paralyzed from the neck down, except for a few movements that she could make with her hands. So I went to visit her one day, and she was always a woman of hope and positivity. And I walked in the room. She had a big smile on her face. And I go, "So how was your day?" Now understand, this woman can do nothing for herself. All of her dreams have totally changed. She goes, "This is such an awesome day." And I go, "Why?" She goes, "Watch this." And so she took her hand, and after about 15 minutes, she was able to do this. And she turned it over. She goes, "Isn't that amazing?" Now, how many of us haven't moved our hands around and not been grateful for muscles that can move and bones that support it? And how many of us have looked outside and not seen the beauty and the glory that is just everywhere to be seen? Or how many of us in this day haven't met somebody who was kind and loving and we didn't even notice it? So much to be grateful for. So I started keeping a gratitude journal. And I have every night, I look at my day and I look at all of the different ways that I experienced grace and blessing and beauty and goodness. And I celebrate it. And are there bad things that happen every day? Yes. And do I face them and handle them? Yes. But also there's the attitude of gratitude. And that every time there you say thank you, there's a little ray of hope that goes and just kind of buries itself in your heart. And along with the gratitude, I would like to suggest we learn, and this to me is harder, contentment. We always want more. We live in a society that wants more. And we need to learn to be content. This is what I have in this day. I will be grateful for this. I don't have what they have. I don't have what other people have. I don't have what I want. But what I have is good. And so let's celebrate that. And my friends, I think you will find that as you do that, you will find the hope that you long for. A second way to receive the gift of hope is to open yourself up to laughter. Just plain Do you realize that of all of the creatures who inhabit this planet, human beings are the only ones with a sense of humor? We're the only ones who can laugh. That is an incredible gift that we are given. And yet, this gift of laughter is one of the most underused gifts that we have. Studies have shown that little toddlers, 2-3 years old, studies have shown they laugh about 300 to 400 times a day. And if you've ever babysat or have little kids, you know they drop something on the floor and it's the funniest thing they've ever seen. They'll sit there and laugh about it. And then they'll drop it again and they'll laugh about it. And everything's just joy, joy, joy. But by the time they get to elementary school, you'll find that those age children only laugh about 50 to 60 times a day. And by the time we get to be adults, the average adult at the most laughs only 15 times a day. Think about it. How many times today have you laughed? How many times every day do you allow yourself the gift of laughter? 3% of the population, and I would guess that's even more now that this whole pandemic has hit our society, never ever laugh. And yet the benefits of laughter have been proven. There are great physiological benefits to laughing. Research shows that it increases the oxygen flow, so your brain is sharper. And believe me, once you get to be my age, you will appreciate that. And not only that, but it's been shown to break the pain cycle. If a good, long, deep belly laugh breaks the pain cycle. And then my favorite benefit is that it burns calories. Now, I gotta be honest with you. I sometimes wonder about that because as much as I laugh, I should be a skinny woman. Do you know what I mean? I laugh all the time and not much has gone away. But I did learn, this is a little important biological fact I will share with you now. You might want to take notes. And that is that in your face, there are approximately 250 little bitty muscles that move when you laugh. And so when my doctor looks at me and he tells me that he wants me to exercise, I just laugh right in his face. I figure I'll use 250 muscles instead of 5 or 6 big ones on some old Nordic track or something. And so, but laughter is so physiologically beneficial. And we need to learn to laugh at ourselves, especially as limitations come upon us and we find ourselves doing or saying things that might be embarrassing. Rather than cover it up and run away, let's just laugh. Let's invite people in to laugh with us. I mean, that's one of the reasons I've got this sense of humor, because embarrassing stuff happens to me all the time. It really does. And instead of burying it, I just tell people about it and I make a living at it. Yes, I do. In fact, I remember my husband was a professor at Calvin University in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And he was an incredible professor who loved his students so much. And often we had students living with us, particularly if they were going through a tough time. He would invite them into our home and we would walk with them and help them get things back together again. And so it was a Saturday morning, I remember. I happened to be home, which is a big thing because I travel around speaking a lot. And I really enjoy being home on the weekend because I don't have to get dressed up. I don't have to put on makeup. I can just kind of schlep around the house real comfortable like. And I was having a nice, comfortable, schleppy morning. And the phone rang, and it happened to be the parents of a girl who had been living with us for a while and was now back on campus. And they wanted to come meet us and thank us for what we had done for their daughter. And so they said, do you mind if we come over? And I was like, no, sure, come on over. So now I have tuition-paying parents coming into my home. And so I cleaned one room and I prayed nobody would go to the bathroom. And I ran upstairs. I put on some makeup. I pulled on a Calvin Mom sweatshirt and a pair of jeans that I'd had on the night before. And I started to walk down the stairs and I noticed that my one leg felt really tight in the jeans, but I assumed it was all the walking that I was doing at the time, and I had just built up too much muscle in that particular leg, and that was the reason that it was feeling tight. And that made perfect sense to me at the time. So the people come, we go into the clean room, we're sitting there, we're talking, and quite frankly, I'm under enormous amounts of pressure because I'm having to be normal. I'm having to be what they would consider a faculty wife to be, which you've probably already picked up. I'm not. And so I'm trying to, enter into this conversation and I thought I felt my cat down by my ankles because my ankle was really tickling me. And I looked down and I didn't see the animal anywhere. And so I kept trying to focus on the conversation, but my ankle was really, really tickling me. And so I thought, I've just got to see what this is all about. So I very delicately kind of turned around and I looked down, and it was at that moment that I discovered that what I had thought was muscle earlier was actually my underwear from the night before, which had gotten caught in my pant leg and was now just kind of working its way out. So I said to myself, self, people are not impressed when you can't handle your underwear. You should probably leave the room. And I thought, oh, that's a good plan. So I got up and I graciously excused myself, and I walked out of the room. And as I'm walking, I'm praying a little prayer. And the prayer goes something like, Dear God, please leave my underwear in my pants. Dear God, please don't let me lose my underwear. Well, we serve a very mighty, awesome God, but he chose not to answer my prayer. And right there in my one clean room in front of the tuition-paying parents, fold my underwear. And it's no small piece of material. And there's no easy way to pick up your underwear and leave a room, people. I'm just telling you. And so I picked them up and I excused myself, and I just ran upstairs and I laid in the bed and I laughed until everybody went home. And that was one of the best laughs I think I've ever had. But those people, they'll probably never ever forget me as long as they live. Laughter is so healthy. Are we perfect? Do we make mistakes? Yes. Let's learn to laugh at ourselves. In the laughing comes the hope. And that is my prayer for you. This quote I wrote down, I wish I knew who said it. These are not my thoughts, but I do want to share this quote with you. It's, as long as we can choose to laugh, it means we affirm life no matter how burdensome it becomes, and it gives us hope. Now, so you think, well, I don't know, what should I laugh about? Well, try YouTube. There's all kinds of really good stuff on YouTube. I mean, I've just, whether it's like Jim Gaffigan or Tim Hawkins or the old Carol Burnett show. I mean, I don't know what strikes your funny bone. Just go on. I sit at home. I live alone. I'm a widow. I laugh my full head off most nights because those people are really, really funny. And it gives me hope. And so I encourage you to receive the gift of laughter. So those are two ways that we can receive hope. Now, it might seem an oxymoron to you that finding hope comes when you give hope away. But I firmly believe that something happens in our minds when we make somebody else feel good. We feel good about ourselves. And so I want to encourage you to offer a word of encouragement and affirmation at least once a day, whether it's to somebody in your family, a store clerk, the neighbor, whatever. People in our culture, particularly in this time of pandemic and the divisive way that our culture is progressing, we need words of hope. Studies show that you need 10 positive words for every negative you hear. Do you know that studies also show that every one of us hears at least 3,000 messages a day? Whether it's on our devices or reading it as we drive along on the billboard or in the newspaper or whatever, messages are these ads that tell us we're not good enough. Our hair's not good enough, so we need to buy this product. We're not driving the right car, so we better buy this car. And in my case, I do not even have the right Medicare support policy. There's always not enough, not good enough. And then as times get testier and people get more anxious during this pandemic, we lash out at others and we hurt others. And so people are just aching and hurting for feelings of affirmation and encouragement. And it is so very, very powerful. And often we don't know the power our word has. I was so profoundly blessed a few years ago. I am on the board for a young evangelist. And also on this board is a minister here in the city of Grand Rapids. And the young evangelist during the course of the meeting was sharing how he wasn't feeling that he was really doing anything. He was making any difference. He just didn't know if this is what he was supposed to be doing. And so the minister spoke up and he said, you don't need to know because, God is doing a work and you just need to trust that. And he goes, I want to tell you a story. He said, back when I was a teenage boy, I went to a youth conference and there was a speaker there and I was feeling that maybe I should be a minister. I wasn't sure. And so I went to talk to the speaker, and that speaker told me that she saw in me gifts of leadership. She saw in me gifts of compassion, and she encouraged me to go forward. And then he turned to me and he said, "That speaker was you." That was 20 years ago. For 20 years, I never knew that God had used me in that boy's life. And now here he is, a very successful, very powerful minister. And so we don't need to know, but we need to know that the word does make a difference. And maybe you can't get out like you used to. Maybe your limitations are keeping you from traveling as much as you want or going to meetings, but you can write notes. And you can send cards, and you can text, and you can call. The smallest word of affirmation can make a difference. One time when I was trying to, I was flying somewhere, and it was winter, and the terrible weather, and we were going through Minneapolis, and all flights were canceled here and there, and you've probably been there where they keep moving you from gate to gate as they try to shuffle you in and out as planes come and go. And so I was finally at my gate, and it's just wall to wall, crush of people. Everybody's angry. We've been there for hours trying to figure out, and I wasn't even sure I was in the right place. So I'm standing in line, and the guy in front of me just yelled at the poor person behind the desk, just yelled at him. And so I get up there, and she yells at me, and she goes, "What do you want?" I said, "Well, basically just two things." She goes, "What?" I said, "Well, first I'd like to know, am I at the gate for a flight, whatever?" And she goes, "Yeah, what else?" I said, "I would like to let you know that I really appreciate how hard this must be for you. And I think you're doing an amazing job. And I want to thank you." And she started to cry, and she came around, she hugged me, and everybody started clapping. I was ready to put arms around shoulders and sing Kumbaya. It was such a small thing, but it changed everything. And just realize that your words of hope and encouragement can make such a difference. And in doing that and giving that away, you receive it back. My husband, as a professor, heard many, many commencement addresses. And he said, but the most singularly powerful commencement address he ever heard was given by a famous author named Lou Smedes. And he said, Smedes got up, he came to the podium, and he said, "Never, ever underestimate the power of an encouraging word." He goes, "That's it." And he sat down. And everybody's like, "We paid money?" But then he got back up and he gave a beautiful speech. But that is so true. And one of the things that I found at my husband's funeral, there are a few people who spoke about his brilliant mind and the incredible research he did. But by far, the thing I heard the most was that he was a man of encouragement. He spoke truth into people's lives, and he made them feel good about who they were. And that is a beautiful gift to give away. And so I encourage you to find hope by giving away encouragement and affirmation. And the second thing that we need to learn to give away, and this, I believe, is needed more than probably anything else that I can think of in this day and age, in this culture, and that is the gift of listening to people. Authentically listening. As we become a people who communicates electronically, we do not know how to really listen to people's hearts. There's something about listening. When I take my time, my energy, I set aside everything else that means something to me, and I focus on you, and I really listen to you, not just to your words, but I listen to your body language. I learned to ask questions that help you know that I am listening. Like, do I hear you saying you feel so-and-so? Or it sounds to me like this is what you're saying. Is that right? Those kinds of things it validates the person. It gives them hope that they have significance. And loneliness is growing exponentially. And the thing about loneliness is this. Loneliness is not so much about being alone. Loneliness is about being with people and nobody cares. That's loneliness. I have the privilege of mentoring about 20 young women in the Gen Z millennial age group. And the majority of my mentoring is not about the great wise wisdom that I have to share with them. It's about the listening that I do. Just listening. And often people process If they have somebody who will just listen, they often process their own questions and come to their own conclusions. And they have an even greater sense of accomplishment. So we need to learn to listen. It is such a precious, precious gift. But here's the other thing. And I just had this happen to me yesterday. I have a friend who has had cancer surgery, and I was authentically concerned for her. So I went to talk with her and listen to her. And I said, so how are you doing? Fine. How was the surgery? It was good. One of the things, not only do we need to listen, but we need to learn to take our masks off and stop pretending we've got it all together. We need to learn to be authentic with each other. So the gift of being real and the gift of listening, when those two come together, amazing things happen and hope blooms. So I would like to conclude by reading a relatively long poem that is called Please Listen to What I Am Not Saying. And it addresses both of those areas in the gift of listening. Please listen to what I'm not saying. Don't be fooled by me. Don't be fooled by the face I wear, for I wear a mask. I wear 1,000 masks. Masks that I'm afraid to take off, and none of them are me. Pretending is an art that is second nature with me, but don't be fooled. Please, don't be fooled. I give you the impression that I'm secure and all is sunny and unruffled with me, within as well as without. That confidence is my name and coolness is my game. That the water is calm and I'm in command, and that I need no one. But don't believe me, please. My surface may seem smooth, but my surface is my mask, my ever-varying, ever-concealing mask. And beneath lies no smugness, no complacence. Beneath dwells the real me in confusion, in fear, in aloneness. But I hide this. I don't want anyone to know it. I panic at the thought of my weakness and fear being exposed, and that is why I frantically create a mask to hide behind, a nonchalant, sophisticated facade to help me pretend, to shield me from the glance that knows. But such a glance is precisely my salvation, my only salvation, and I know it. That is, if it is followed by acceptance, if it is followed by love. It is the only thing that can liberate me from myself, from my own self-built prison walls, from the barriers that I so painstakingly erect. It is the only thing that will assure me of what I can't assure myself, that I am really worth something. But I don't tell you this. I don't dare. I'm afraid to. I'm afraid that your glance will not be followed by acceptance and love. I'm afraid that you will think less of me and you will laugh. And your laugh would kill me. I am afraid that deep down I am nothing, that I'm no good, and that you will see this and you will reject me. And so I play my game, my desperate, pretending game with the facade of assurance without and a trembling child within. And so begins the parade of masks. And my life becomes a front. And I idly chatter to you in suave tones of surface talk. And I tell you everything that is really nothing, and nothing of what's everything, of what's crying within me. So when I'm going through my routine, do not be fooled by what I'm saying. Please listen carefully and try to understand what I am not saying. What I would like to be able to say, what for survival I need to say, but what I can't say. I dislike hiding. Honestly, I dislike this superficial, phony game I am playing. I would like to be genuine and spontaneous in me, but you have got to help me. You've got to hold out your hand even when it's the last thing I seem to want or need. Only you can wipe away from my eyes the blank stare of the breathing dead. Only you can call me into aliveness. Each time you are kind and gentle and encouraging, each time you try to understand because you really care, my heart begins to grow wings, very small, very feeble wings, but wings. With your sensitivity and your sympathy and your power of understanding, you can breathe life into me, and I want you to know that. I want you to know how important you are to me and how you can be the creator of the person that is me if you choose to. And please, please choose to. For you alone can break down the wall behind which I tremble. You alone can remove my mask. You alone can release me from the shadow world of panic and uncertainty, from my lonely self-built prison walls. So do not pass me by. Please do not pass me by. It will not be easy for you. A long conviction of worthlessness builds strong walls. And the nearer you approach me, the blinder I may strike back. I fight against the very thing I cry out for. But I'm told that love is stronger than strong walls. In this lies my hope, my only hope. Please try to beat down these walls with firm but gentle hands, for the child inside is sensitive. Who am I, you may wonder? I am every man you meet and every woman you meet. My dear friends, one of the tenets of my life is from Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said, every person we meet is one way or another better than us. And our job is to find out what that is. I believe our job is to listen intently and carefully, to help them take off their masks, to appreciate and accept them just where they are. You don't need to have full use of all of your facilities to do that. Just be a loving, listening presence in a human being's life can make a world of difference. And I encourage you to do that. I began by honoring you, and I want to end this talk by honoring you as well. You are people of great courage. Your lives are important, they are significant, and my deepest wish for you is that you will be able to find the hope that you need, and you will be able to share the hope that others need. Thank you.
Thank you, Jolene, for your inspirational and hilarious talk on finding hope. If you found value in this information, please consider a donation to the Myasthenia Gravis Foundation of Michigan. Your donation helps ensure that we can continue to offer this important info to our MG family going forward. You can donate by texting MGMI to 41444 or by visiting our website, mg-mi.org. Join us at noon Eastern Time for a live presentation on MG Crisis, a Nurse's Perspective from Sandra Harding of Optum Infusion Services. This talk is not able to be recorded, so it's important that you join us here at noon to learn this great information. We look forward to seeing you then.